Welcome to Heartfelt Chats with Gift Malinga, where we explore the resilience of the human spirit and the stories that shape us. Through each episode, we dive deep into life's experiences, from loss and triumphs to love and growth, uncovering the ways our inner worlds respond to the challenges we face. Through the lenses of faith, empathy, and understanding, we'll journey together to discover how we can heal, connect, and find strength in our unique stories. Join us as we seek to understand ourselves and others, one heartfelt chat at a time. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Heartfelt Chats with Gift Malinga. Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again in this very 2025. I'm so excited that we are going on this journey together. I'm so excited that you decided to join us again on this episode in this very new year as well. I'm so hopeful that every one of our listeners are still in good health and are still going well as well. I'm so grateful that the Lord has kept you, and I'm glad that you have chosen to come back again. And to those who are our first time listeners and joining us, we are thanking you so much that you're choosing to consider us as well. I'm so grateful to see you. I'm so grateful that you are choosing this platform, and I'm so hopeful as well that in this new year you are gonna find this as a great learning space and as a great healing space as well. More significantly, as a great healing space and a place to grow as well. You know, because I just want us to really endeavor on a journey of understanding one another far more better as well. So I'm so grateful that you chose to listen to us, and I'm so grateful that you chose to come back again in this episode as well. So thank you. Shout out to every single person who listens to the podcast, and shout out to all our first time listeners as well. And I'm hopeful that we are going to continue learning from each other as well. So thank God that we all made it through this year. And to those who possibly lost family members, possibly lost loved ones, and all the things that you possibly lost as well, we are truly sending our condolences to you, and hopeful that the Lord will take you through a healing journey. And hopefully in this episode as well that which we are sharing, you will be able to get to a place where you get to understand and possibly and rather understand your experience better, and possibly find a place of healing as well. So for those who lost other people or their families and all those things, we are truly sorry for your loss, and hopeful that the Lord takes you through a process of healing as you find yourself once again. Let's continue with our series. We are on experiential difference, and this is installment number 2 specifically, that has to do with experiential difference. As promised, we are gonna go on into speaking about blind spots. I promised you that we are gonna journey into that conversation, and I want us to go into that specific conversation that deals with blind spots. In our previous episode, we mostly spoke about how every single one of us has different experiences, and how we respond differently to these experiences because we experience them differently, no matter how similar they may become, no matter how different they may be as well. But our experiences, rather our responses to our experiences as well, are shaped by the kind of environment we come from. They are shaped by the kind of internal systems that are there within us as well. So I just want us to really go on into blind spots. If you really want to understand us far more better, I recommend that you listen to our previous episode, which was powerful and power-packed with beautiful points there as well. So there's a point that I mentioned in our previous episode, and I'm just going to use this as a ground laying point for this current episode as well before we go into blind spots. I said a point, and I said, who we are today is an accumulative history of who we were. You know, that we are the byproduct of everything we've experienced before. Everything that which we are now is as a result of everything that we've been before. Controversy that might seemingly be coming because of what I'm saying, but the biggest reason why I'm saying that is because I understand that every single person has a unique experience. Rather, they respond, rather they no matter how similar our experiences may be, we are always going to respond to them differently. And that is why you are able to find even twin people, twin sisters, twin brothers. So, you find them responding in a very different manners, in different ways, as similar as they may be, as look-alike as they may become, and as great an environment they may come from together, but they are going to respond to the world in very different ways. They might even see the same experiences in very different ways. And because of that, therefore, we need to then understand that their blind spots are not going to be the same. Let me say this. Every single person has a blind spot. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what kind of background you come from. It doesn't matter what kind of experience you have. Every single person has a blind spot. And these are as a result of all our experiences having had an impact and an effect on how we view the world. Our experiences, as I said, have different impacts on us. They have different effects on us. And therefore, because of that, they therefore shape different blind spots. We might experience the same thing, yet experience it differently. And because of that, therefore, our blind spots are going to be different. Sometimes we might experience the same thing for some people and respond in similar ways, and yet their blind spots are different. And this is because we are at the core of our nature. We are different individuals. We are different people. We might all return back to the same man or the same creator, being created by the same Christ, who at the end of the day will reflect from him, but we are all at the core of our nature, different individuals. And as I said, every experience also, no matter how healthy or unhealthy it may be, how similar or how unique it may be as well, has had an effect on us. And unfortunately for us, therefore, not all of them are great. Not all of them are awesome, However, we need to then understand that not every experience as well is bad, Not every experience is poor. Not every experience is horrible. Some experiences are great. Some individuals. In fact, I am a firm believer in the fact that we need a lot of those who come from healthy backgrounds. Actually, our next series from here, which is going to be a powerful one, is going to deal a lot with some of these things, and we are going to understand dysfunctionality better. But what I'm trying to then bring across here is for us to understand that every experience, it doesn't matter whether you come from a healthy background or an unhealthy background, there's a particular view, and there's a particular blind spot it also creates. And I'm going to say this with so much caution. We tend to think because we come from healthy backgrounds, we have no blind spots. And we tend to think that because we come from unhealthy backgrounds, horrible backgrounds, we think therefore we understand the world better, and therefore we think we don't really much have blind spots except of. And therefore that equally covers both the healthy and the unhealthy from understanding that there's a particular way that those who come from great backgrounds and have held healthy systems, there's a particular things, there's a lot of things that we need to learn from them, and there's a way that we need to understand them in as well. And there's a particular way that those who come from a healthy background need to understand those who come from unhealthy systems. But because we all think that we don't have blind spots, it therefore limits how we relate to one another. These blind spots, we need to understand that they are created by the unique experiences that we have. And what causes, they generally cause the way we see others and how we relate with others as well. Every response and every kind of behavior that I have towards somebody else is as a result of the experiences that I've had. And the responses that I has a connotation of the blind spot I have. Remember that the issue with blind spots, we're going to define what they are, but the big thing with blind spots is the fact that you can't see them. And that's where they thrive. They thrive in the blind. They thrive in in the dark, that they are not seen, they are not known. That's how they prosper. The fact that you don't even think that you have them is why they prosper, is why you consistently do the same things you do every time when you relate with others, even how you relate with yourself as well. So therefore, understanding our own biases and our own blind spots together with those of others will then allow us to understand each other better and even relate in more empathetic ways. So I want us to then explore, what are blind spots? What are we talking about when we refer to blind spots? What's that all about? And I think one of the things that I just generally want you to consider throughout the episode, maybe let me leave these questions and these things that I want you to consider for the end of the episode as well. So I just want us to really go on into understanding what are blind spots. Blind spots are the gaps in our understanding or our awareness, and they are often shaped and caused by our unique experiences. The gaps that you constantly see the gaps that which we have in our understanding and our awareness, whether of ourselves or that of others as well. And these things are shaped constantly, and they are caused by the unique experiences we have. You see that blind spots don't exist in a vacuum. They have a background, they have a place they come from, and that place is called your experience, your personal, unique experience. And therefore, because of that, not everybody will understand or have your kind of blind spot. So therefore, it's of necessity that we therefore ask ourselves consistently, what are my blind spots? But before we get there, blind spots are also those things that prevents us from fully empathizing with others fully, or even recognizing different perspectives, because we assume that our own experiences and responses to those experiences are universal. It is when you constantly think that my experience, rather my perspective, is universal. That kind of particular reason to think that, this kind of person was a drunkard, they only quit by just deciding. I'll give you a story about that at some point if I didn't already. I just quit alcohol by reason of a decision, and somebody else has to go to a rehab. It means the one who's going to a rehab has lack of capacity of deciding. They have poor decision making. That's generally the conclusion we come to, and that in itself is caused by a bias. It's caused by a blind spot. There are some things you are blind to that's preventing you from fully empathizing with somebody else and recognizing the different perspectives. There are different perspectives that are there, that exist outside of the spectrum of knowledge that you have. So therefore, we need to be open from that. Those kind of perspective that which we don't want to be open to, the different kinds, are as a result of the fact that we assume that our own experiences and our own responses or those of others are therefore universal. That if somebody else was able to do it in this way, therefore it means everybody else must do it in that way. It's not the same. In our previous episode, there's a point I mentioned, and I said we must understand that every socially accepted behavior today was first initially an original. It began with someone for it to be accepted as something that's acceptable in society. So we need to then understand that every person has a blind spot, and that blind spot is caused by their own experience. Let's make an example about a person who comes from a poor financial background and a person that comes from a well-established financial background. If you think about the two, generally, if you think about the two people right now, and right now I'm just thinking about the individual who comes from a poor financial background, for an example. If you look at that kind of person who comes from a poor financial background, as an example, that individual might be considered as an individual. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to read it as it is on my notes. So let me just read it. It says, a person who grew up with financial stability might struggle to understand the daily anxieties of someone who experienced poverty, which then leads to assumptions like they just need to work harder. If you come from a well-established financial background, sometimes it makes you think, rather makes you struggle to understand why is the other individual who comes from a poor financial background is always having anxieties about financials or finances, and they have anxieties about how are they going to live, how are they going to do particular things, and all these kind of things, So these kind of things are what contributes to the kind of blind spots we have. If I come from a financially established background, I struggle to understand the person whose daily anxieties are about finances because they come from poverty. I struggle to understand it. There's something I thought about actually as I was preparing this. I was like, think about a person who comes from a well-established financial background who sees an iPhone, for an example, commonly used thing, an iPhone, and sees an iPhone 14 just came out or something. It's about 21 or 24,000 rand, and they're like, oh, I could buy this, and they buy it. And then on my side, I'm just thinking to myself, I could literally buy some groceries, I could build, I could buy some shack and then rent it out or paint at home or do this thing and this. There's an example actually that my pastor, Apostle St. Pierre, once made at some point in one of his sermons. He once made an example about this, and I think it's quite significant to mention. He said, at some point it was about him. He said, because he had this small mentality about how to do ministry, when he went to a ministry of a person who was doing ministry at a higher scale, when this person spoke about lightings and sounds that were powerful, and that the sound system, that it's too bad and all these things. And when you look at it, when at the level that he was at in that moment, he thought this was the most powerful sound. But here was a pastor saying, this sound is bad. We need far better sound. That's about 70,000. And he's thinking that, 70,000, I could make that in like 5 years. And these people are raising it in a service. That kind of different experience that's just there, So I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, blind spots are also created by the fact that we really had different backgrounds. So I think I just want us then to delve deeper into move forward, because I don't want to dwell here a lot. If I dwell here, we are not going to move. I want us to go deeper into how experiential difference then creates blind spots. How does it create blind spots? I want to delve into 3 specific things that I chose to speak about here, which is selective learning, cognitive biases, and emotional barriers. When it comes to selective learning, this deals with how our experiences shape what we pay attention to and how it leaves us unaware of the realities that are outside of our experiences. Selective learning is choosing what we pay attention to, is how the experiences we've had generally makes us choose, or they decide for us where we are to go, what we are to experience. Selective learning, when we talk about selective learning, what we talk about there is that our experiences shape what we pay attention to and what leaves us unaware of the realities that are outside of our experiences. This is when we generally choose to pay attention to particular things and not others. And this is as a result of the experiences that we've had. We tend to be blind to the things that which are outside of the scope of our experience, compared to when we are to the things that are outside the scope of our experience. And this therefore leaves us unaware of the realities that exist outside of our experiences. Let me make an example. I've given you a bit about my background, and if you know me, I always speak about childhood traumas, and I speak about coming from dysfunctional backgrounds, and all these things that I generally talk about have to do with people that grew up unhealthy. I always love talking about relationships. I talk about all these things. I've always loved, at some point, I always spoke, and people that knew me knew that if you know Gift, you know he hates being single. You know, there are particular things that came from that. And therefore, because of the background that I had, I'm more attentive and I'm more able to see people that come from dysfunctional backgrounds, that come from backgrounds that are not nice, from backgrounds that are not great, and people who have experienced pain and all these things. I'm more prone to seeing it. If a person has experienced pain in any sort of way, I'm more prone to experiencing it and more prone to knowing what to say. But if people come and they've had a different experience from that, and they actually have seen health, they've seen greatness and all these things, it becomes a bit of a challenge for me to then know how to address them. And obviously this was as a result of my blind spots. This makes me think that, rather, this made me think at some point that there's no life outside of the experience that which we've had, you know, all these things. But generally what selective learning has to do with is the fact that my experiences have shaped what I choose, rather what I tend to pay attention to. And therefore that tends to leave us unaware of the realities that are outside of our experiences. And if you think about it, almost all of us fall prey to this. We fall prey to this. We tend to not know, rather we tend to want to respond to people's circumstances or situation based on how we dealt with it, not realizing that the kind of experience that this individual has had, rather the kind of experiences that the individual comes from, might demand that I give them a general sense, a general response. However, responding to them empathetically, you know, I'm rushing ahead of myself, man. But let me go ahead to the second point. The second point that deals with cognitive biases. Cognitive biases. Cognitive biases is something that's quite significant as well, because it deals with events through the lenses of our past, own perspectives, while it dismisses others. You see how selective learning, it deals with how our experiences shape what we pay attention to. However, cognitive biases makes you understand why that is. It is telling you that because of who we are, our human nature, naturally we are going to interpret any event through the lenses of our own experiences. However, this reinforces selective learning, therefore, which is our own perspectives. You know, it reinforces that. It reinforces the kind of perspectives we hold based on our own experiences, and therefore that alternatively rather therefore dismisses the other experiences that people might have as well. I think that generally people tend to not understand how to relate with one another because we struggle on these points. It's not wrong that we want to interpret events based on the lenses of our own experiences and what we know. As I said, based on the level of knowledge that we have, it's not wrong that we'd want to do that, because human nature wants you to relate to someone most times, and sometimes some people are just horrible out there, you know, and their responses, they are not empathetic nor sympathetic at all. They don't really care much. Their responses are just responses, really, you know. And this is just generally what tends to happen, because people don't understand people that have had experiences that are different from them. We need to then understand that because of cognitive biases, that in itself creates a blind spot. Because once we view every event through the lenses of our own past, we reinforce our own perspectives and we dismiss those of others. This is where you find people who want to always have something to say to others, but not something said to them. This is where they say people don't want to learn. They don't want to listen to others and all these things. This is where it is, cognitive biases. And the last one has to do with emotional barriers. Strong emotional responses to our own experiences can block us from seeing beyond our pain or joy. When we respond strongly to our own experiences, blocks us from seeing beyond our pain or joy. This is when, I think I explained this a bit just now, when I'm so strong about the broken people, when I'm so strong about people that come from systems that are not healthy as I have myself, that I can't even see the perspective of an individual that comes from a healthy background. We need to then understand that as strong as we feel because of our own experiences, there's an experience beyond our own. There's an experience of pain beyond my joy. There's experience of joy beyond my pain. And therefore, for me to then learn of that of someone else, I need to then understand that, rather allow myself to learn beyond my strong emotional responses to my own personal experience. So we need to then understand these three things. We need to understand selective learning. We need to understand cognitive bias. We need to understand emotional barriers so that we may understand how to then relate with other people. There are three types of blind spots I'm going to talk about today. And these three types of blind spots, after that, we just generally talk about the implications of these on relationships and on leadership. Then we close. There's empathy blind spots. This has to do with the failure to grasp why others make different choices or hold different views from you. Remember that this is as a result of what we just spoke about as well. When it's referred to cognitive biases, when referred to emotional barriers. Because of these strong emotions we have, because of this one lens that we view the world through, we struggle to grasp why others make different choices from ourselves or how they hold different values from ourselves as well. And this is what makes relating to others difficult. Our own experiences themselves tend to make how we relate and how we decide and how we see things to be very different. Imagine how far more do our blind spots. Do you realize that some of the arguments that you have with people around you are not as a result of the fact that they are not understanding you? Sometimes that you're not understanding them. We are not understanding each other, in fact. And you're not understanding each other because you are both blind to the kind of blind spots you have because of your own experiences. There's also self-awareness blind spots. This has to do with overlooking how your own experiences, how our own experiences affect our behaviors and our choices. You know, this is so significant that so many relationships have failed at this very point. The fact that we fail to be self-aware at how our own experiences have affected our behaviors and our choices. This has to do with academia. This has to do with relationships. This has to do with our employments. This has to do with career fields and all these things. These are coming as a result of the kind of behaviors and the kind of choices that we have that are shaped by our own experiences. We need to grow in self-awareness in order to then understand why we behave the way we do. There's a book I can recommend. It's called, I think I spoke about it as well in a previous episode, Practically Irrational. That book speaks about why are we the way we are. Why do people behave they behave the way they do. And that in itself, you get to understand some of these concepts, that really guide you into understanding yourself better and understanding others better, And if we don't grow in the self-awareness blind spots, the fact that we need to grow more in self-awareness, in understanding our blind spots better, in understanding ourselves better in relation to our own experience and how our own experiences shape how we see others, I'm telling you, nothing we ever do will actually prosper as it has to do with relation to people. And lastly, let's talk about cultural blind spots. Now, this is so significant as well, because this has to do with how we ignore the impact of cultural norms on how they shape our perspectives. Cultural norms doesn't have to do with your own culture as a Zulu individual only. They have to do with where you are currently. You could be in a cultural church, you could be in a mainline church, you could be in a charismatic church, you could be in a healthy family, unhealthy family, you could be Zulu, you could be Xhosa, you could be Sotho, you could be in an environment, I don't know, all kinds of different things. A culture that's prevalent in the area you are in shapes how your experiences are like. It shapes your perspectives. It shapes how you view the world and how you view others. The most common culture in that area shapes your thinking patterns, and it shapes how you view the world. And our blindness towards this, and our blindness towards the blind spots that culture creates, is one of the biggest reasons why we don't understand each other as well. Diversity suffers at the altar of blind spots. Hey, look at the pastor and me coming out altars. Anyway, that's just generally some of the points that which we can talk about as it has to do with this. And now I want to go to our concluding point, which has to do with implications of blind spots on two specific places. And these are the biggest places for me, because these are the biggest areas that I think most of us suffer on relationships. The biggest implication that blind spots have on relationships, it doesn't matter whether it be a relationship with your mother or father, a relationship with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, a relationship with your friend, a relationship with your boss or your employee. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship it may be, as long as it's a relationship. The biggest implication that blind spots have on relationships is misunderstanding. That's the biggest issue. You know, I stand on the belief that many relationships have failed at the place of misunderstanding, at this very point that they misunderstood each other. They don't understand each other. You know, misunderstanding your partners or your friends or your boss's needs or reactions because your experiences differ. We tend to misunderstand each other because of our different experiences. And because of these different experiences, we end up in arguments, we end up in fights, we end up in separations, and we say, our season is over. No, your season is not over. You just don't want to understand a perspective that's outside of your own. You know, I've heard that a lot. You know, no, we're no longer meant to be friends. No, it's no longer our season together. No. Not every relationship is seasonal. In fact, I know how controversial this may be. I'm not a strong believer in the whole concept of relationships as seasonal. I'm not a strong believer. I'm not against it, but I'm not a strong believer in it. I believe in the fact that we might help each other a lot in a particular season, but it doesn't mean our relationship was seasonal. No. Our demand and our need in that moment rather required for us to engage a lot more. We might engage a lot less in particular times, but that does not mean that our friendship was seasonal or our relationship was seasonal. I'm a firm believer in that. But anyway, we are different individuals, as this series deals with, you know. So I think most relationships die here. Most partnerships die here at misunderstanding. We don't want to understand each other's backgrounds. We need to understand that because of where I come from, because of the background that I have, my zeal, as it has to do with people that grew up alone, is not going to be the same with the individual who grew up with two families, with two parents rather, or with parents. You know, it's not going to be the same. We might have zeal, both of us, but it's not going to be the same. And it doesn't mean mine is more healthy because I'm the one who understands the concept better. Because we tend to think because I lived the experience more, it means I have better solutions. I might have a better understanding of the lived experience, but as it goes ahead, I need a different perspective. For me to deal with brokenness, I need to know what is health. And the best way to understand what is health is to learn from the one who knows it, because I don't. Therefore, because we don't want to then come to that understanding that because I come from a broken system, I need to learn from the one who does not come from a broken system, it becomes a bit of an issue. So therefore, we need to grow in that part. The last point I want us to talk about as well is in leadership and in decision making. The problem here is that leaders tend to design their policies or their organizations or their companies based on their perspective while ignoring the lived realities of others. We need to understand that there's a reality, there's an experience that's beyond our own as leaders. We need to understand, I was a chairperson of a student organization at the Christian Action Fellowship at Wits University. And at the end of our leadership, actually, I was talking to my vice chairperson who texted me, Nongceba at the time, who texted me. And this was after our leadership term. She texted me and she was like, I need to understand why you were so hard on us and everything. And then, but she didn't say that initially. She just asked me about my background. Like, can I ask you, how did you grow up? Because I hadn't told them much. How did you grow up and all these things? Then I told her, I explained bit by bit and everything. And after I explained everything, all she responded by saying was, I understand now why you are so hard on us. You don't, like, when she said that, she then explained a bit more. She was like, I understand why you're so hard on us because, it's like we are making up for something, I can't really remember exactly what she said, but she was like, it's like you're making up for something so much that because of the lack of parenting that you had and the lack of these things that you had at the time, you tend to be so hard on other people, because you never learned or you don't know how to really relate with others outside of the lived experience that you had. I can't really tell you exactly how she said it, but I know it had to do with those terms. In that moment, I then understood that my leadership style was influenced by my own experience, and therefore I became biased. I became very biased as it has to do with how to understand the perspectives of others, because I ignored their realities. I ignored their experiences. I ignored how they viewed the world, how they saw the world, how they solved problems from their own experiences, because all I wanted was, it's either my way or the highway, and if it wasn't my way, I had my way to sway the room so that they vote for my methods. And that was the challenge. Now, looking at all these things that we just discussed, I want you to ask yourself, have you discovered your own blind spots? What have you done to deal with them? What are your blind spots? And I'd love for you to engage with us, comment, send us an inbox, send me an inbox on my social media, DGift Malinga on all platforms, DGift Malinga Facebook, on Instagram, and on what's that, Threads. I'm also there. You can send us an email as well. Just let us know, have a conversation with us, comment as well in these episodes as well, down there on how you dealt with them. What do you think are your blind spots, And it doesn't have to be on relationships. It could be on something else. It doesn't have to be on leadership. It could be on something else. But have you actually seen them? If you have not, when are you starting? When do you plan to consider them? And maybe we'll talk about how to then go ahead, the type of questions one should ask themselves and all these things. On our next episode, we'll be talking about how to appreciate difference, and we'll talk about a bit more about those as well, as it has to do with how to identify them and everything, beyond the things that we should shared here. Besides that, thank you so much for chilling with us. Thank you for being with us today. This is Heartfelt Chats with Gift Malinga. I'm hopeful that you're going to continue being with us. You're going to continue joining us. You're going to continue being with us, and that every episode is going to be impactful to you, helpful to you. Please recommend it to your friends, to your family, and bring more others to listen as we endeavor on this journey together. Till we meet again. Peace out.